If you're an Android user and you are looking for a good podcast app, check out the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store. There are thousands of positive reviews highlighting all the features. The one I like is that you don't have to remember what day of the week the show you like comes out because you just favorite them and it downloads them for you. But pick your own by visiting the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott!
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah!
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Welcome to the 150th episode spectacular for Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers, and with me, as always, is a man who I'm going to describe in great detail by heading to the archives right now. A man who knows how to find really great lamps at yard sales and doesn't need electricity to turn himself on. Who has what I am now concerned is too much affinity for cotton candy. Who doesn't have much experience with a 20-sided die, but damned is going to use his charisma check to try to bluff his way through it. Who always lets the Wookiee win. Who knows this essential truth. Never, under any circumstances, trust Christian Slater if you're in a movie. Who knows that if you catch a Bigfoot, the most important thing to do is make him part of your family. To Coca-Cola, Skittles, Gatorade, McDonald's. Whoa, that was weird. It's just like all these things subtly slipped into our podcast. Who's equally sick of looking at this stupid house. Who I definitely would pick for my team on the Midnight Madness run. Who also didn't know what to get his mother for Mother's Day this year, so we got her an episode. You know him as a lot of different names, so make one up yourself. The Macho Man Drew.
Andrew Lano.
We got some fun audience questions here. We also, you're going to hear our clip of our She's All That episode, which you can get over on the Patreon, which is our official 150th episode, which is really just buck wild.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Technically, we would have hit this number earlier, but we weren't numbering the Patreon bonuses at first, and then we decided to start doing that. So those are canon, I guess you would say.
Canon or canon?
As much as both. But so we'll have a clip of that in a minute here. But ahead of that, we wanted to do some Q&A stuff for folks. So we got some questions. But do check out the Patreon. So at the $5 level, you get a bonus episode once every quarter. So that will be this She's All That episode that's available there. We're currently a couple of Patreons away from a bonus commentary track, which we're currently doing some cool March Madness style voting that's going to extend into March as we wait and see once we get to that threshold for it. But visit patreon.com/dissectingthe80s and learn about all that. But to start here, let's just jump into some of these questions. The first one here, not counting horror movies, what is the worst movie you have covered on the podcast? So I went back into the archives for this. I have an answer ready, so you can think about it. I'm guessing you don't necessarily have.
I mean, yeah, you didn't prep me on the questions, so I have to. I
did actually mail these to you 2 weeks ago when I got them from the listener.
I don't remember this email.
I emailed you on February 9th at 1:40 p.m.
I was waiting for like one master email of all the questions.
It was all in there.
I don't remember that. So
I dug through the archives. My pick, I think, goes all the way back to season 1. And the couple that I'd be between would be Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
A good pick.
But the one I think is my answer is Going Overboard. I would say Parasite 3D would probably shelf in there if we were to include horror, but this is specifically taking out horror. That Adam Sandler boat movie was like barely a movie.
Yeah.
It was honestly, it's an interesting thing doing the podcast because when you do an episode on a bad movie, it can turn out to be a really great episode. Like the other episode that dropped today, I think is a terrible movie, but I genuinely laughed out loud editing Ready to Rumble more than I often do. So it can lead to good comedy. So, but I would say the Going Overboard Adam Sandler is my pick for just the absolute worst movie we've done.
That's a good one. Baby is a really solid choice just because it was so nothing. Like nothing happened.
Yeah. Right.
Ready to
And the creepy brachiosaur puppet thing.
Yeah. Ready to Rumble, I'm not going to count it just because it's a leap year fluke, but that was difficult to sit through.
Sure, yeah.
I also, like, in my defense, had a headache. I had a really bad headache. I hadn't got a lot of sleep. It was not a good day, and then I had to watch this.
Heartbeeps maybe would be in the conversation.
You think?
It's really I didn't thought that. I mean, I'm just looking at this list. I feel like that's a pretty bad movie. The Wizard is a pretty bad movie.
See, Wizard at least has sentimental value because I remember watching that as a kid, like getting that movie from the library.
Okay. Mazes and Monsters would be another one. I'm just looking
Mazes
at the list
and Monsters.
Here of other ones.
That's a very good one.
Wired, maybe, like just because of how tasteless it was. The John Belushi biopic.
You know what? That one, because it was just such a bizarre choice to like let's make a movie about John Belushi but have zero respect for his life.
Exactly.
It just seemed. What do you want to get out of that? What are you trying to evoke?
Right. The other one here, what is your surprise favorite episode for a movie that you didn't like? So in a movie where you didn't like the movie, but you thought the episode was quite good.
Rumble.
The example that, yeah, I think that's a good guess or a good answer. This is from Patreon supporter Michelle. She gave The Karate Kid as an example. She's like, you guys both hated that movie, but it's one of my favorite episodes of the show.
Did we hate Karate Kid?
I hate Karate Kid. I don't know if you do, but I really hate Karate Kid.
It's been a minute since I listened. Like, today I listened because I was like, I remember we made a joke about Predator being She's All That. So I went and I listened to that episode. And you a-hole, you dropped She's All That at the end of the episode. It's not where the rest of the bits happen.
Oh, like I edited it out?
You must have like thought you were going to take it out and then put it back in at the end because there's a solid chunk in the middle where we do all the bits and then we come back to it later. And I was like, I swear we talked about Predator being.
We might have just we just did like a callback bit at the end. I don't often do what you're describing.
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden I was like, oh, it's literally the last 2 minutes of the podcast is that.
Maybe it got, you know what? It might have been that time where we had the recording snafu and like only one half of the conversation got recorded. And I was like, this is still really funny, but it's nonsense out of context. So that might have been it.
Fair.
I think Karate Kid is a great answer for that, where like the episode
is better
than the movie. One Magic Christmas, though, that is the episode I most often recommend to people. I always tell people, like, actually, this is kind of a funny story and relevant to this. But go ahead and answer if you're going to answer it. I'll come back to that.
Movie where I just had one. And then we kept talking about other ones, and I lost it.
Children of the Corn's another one where I think like the movie stinks, but the episode's pretty great.
I like that movie.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great movie, but I think the episode is one of our better ones. I had a friend of a friend over, and we're talking about the podcast, and she was like, oh, I still need to check that out. What would you recommend? And I was like, honestly, I would pick a movie that you're familiar with, but if you don't know any of them, which I would imagine at this point is kind of challenging, given that we've done 150 episodes.
Yeah.
One Magic Christmas is one that I just think it's so amazing. And then she's looking at it, and she's like, wait, so each episode is just one movie? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, and they're an hour and a half?
Not all of them.
That's what I said. I was like, only sometimes. But yeah, I thought that was
One Magic Christmas needed that. Oh, you know what?
Yes.
It was the one I was thinking. Which Amityville has the lamp?
Oh, Amityville 4, The Evil Escapes.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, that is the perfect
It's the one that doesn't have incest but does have the lamp.
Yes. Yeah, no, that is definitely
Carol or whatever your name is.
Yes. Still very funny. Do you ever watch a movie and then get sad you can't do it on the podcast because it's not from the 80s?
Oh, not from the 80s? Yeah, all the time.
This happens to me once a week. Or I'm watching something.
There was a very long period where I was like, you know what? I'm like sitting on this. It's going to be really good. I'm going to wait for it and then slap it. Like, you know what, Trip? We should do this one. This is my pick. It's like for you. Because the Ninja Turtles had a concert VHS that they sold at Pizza Hut. And it starred the woman playing April O'Neil as a Broadway star.
There's a couple Broadway people in it.
Yeah, Sherry
like a couple
Ray Scott,
famous
if
Broadway.
anyone's a Broadway nerd like me, plays April O'Neil. And I was so excited. I was like, there was a really good quality on YouTube because the stage manager or something, or the light tech for the show, had the good recording and like uploaded it to YouTube. And who in the turtle world gives a shit?
Yeah, who cares?
Like, I don't think they're like, this is going to take this down. No. It came out in 1990.
Oh, yeah.
There was the biggest upset. I was like, no. I was so excited that we were going to do a stupid, Trip Ninja Turtles, me musical. Like, it was going to be the best of both worlds. I got real bummed.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we do stupid stuff on Leap Day, because it's like we do love 80s movies, but I really enjoy tearing into a movie with you, or not even tearing into. I would like it. What we do, I feel, often doesn't come necessarily from a place of hatred of movies. Like, we might hate a movie individually, but it's like, it's still, we love to watch movies. And so it's more a disappointment than anything else when they're bad. But yeah, there's so much stuff that I watch. Yeah. But there's so much stuff that I watch where I'm like, oh my God, we would have such a fun conversation about this movie or show or whatever it is. So yeah, that happens to me like once a week. I'm trying to think of a good recent example of something, because I'm not even talking about necessarily like borderline cases. Like sometimes I just watch a movie
like
from
a current
2000.
movie.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is such a good podcast episode. A perfect example, there's a horror movie that, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but the sequel just came out, The Boy.
Oh, that's a dumbass movie.
It is like... It would be such a fun episode of the podcast.
It's a nice double twist, I will say.
Yeah, but that's one of those situations where I'm like, oh man, this is really a good podcast movie, and it'll never be a podcast episode.
Yeah.
Do you ever start recording an episode and midway through think, oh no, this isn't going to be good?
I don't think so.
Every single episode.
Okay.
No, there are times, and I think the audience can tell too. Like, if an episode is shorter than usual, it's usually because a movie didn't provide a lot of places to go stupid places.
Yeah,
we've gotten better about screening that out of the process. Like, it doesn't happen as much anymore. It happens more often with theme months where we're like really trying to fit stuff into a box.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, for a minute, I was noticing that if I loved or was super familiar with a movie, I was taking less notes. Like, I would maybe have like a 1 page front and back and then 1 page front. And most of it was just plot line so that we could keep on track, and a couple jokes. But then I realized, like, no, that's not an indication, because I've watched the movie so much, or I'm so familiar with the movie that I already know the jokes I'm going to make.
Yeah.
Like, I know that when I talk about this plot line, oh, that means this. Like, this is my joke.
Yeah, I tried to. One of the other questions I got was, "What's your process for watching a movie?" And we started talking about that. So we'll just talk about this here. Is like, if someone were to look at my notes, they would be extremely confused. I feel like, because it's like, it's very stream of consciousness of like sketching out the plot so that we can keep on track as best we can. Although obviously anyone who listens to the show knows sometimes we lose our space a little bit. And then just like bits that I've come up with of, like I was very proud of myself with the Herbie episode where I was like, LGBT large boat. And I was writing that, and like by the end of an episode, I'm down to like the very small part of the paper. And so I'm writing a little bit smaller to like make sure I can squeeze it onto the page. And I wrote LGBT in huge letters because I was like, you cannot forget this joke. It must be in the episode.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, because I use a couple different notebooks for the podcast. I tried having one, but I'm a garbage monster, and I'm like, what notebook has space in it?
Yeah.
And I remember one time I like sent like a Snapchat to my boyfriend, and the corner of my notes were on it, and it said like it was like some of the things like the sexy red dress falls to the floor, and he was like, "What are you writing?" And I was like, "It's notes for the pot. It's not important."
There was a part of me that was like, oh, I wonder if this would be something that like people would like to have as like a Patreon thing. It's like, I'd be happy to like sign a page of notes or fold out.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, it looks legitimately like the scribblings of a madman. Like it's not fun,
and it's
or
not
interesting.
funny.
I don't
like
think.
they're my is it crib sheet?
Yeah.
It's like, it's my crib sheet to make it funny. So these bones don't. It's not broth yet. It's just bones.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What is the process for finding movies? I think we got this question last time we did a Q&A, but I can answer it fairly quickly. I do most of it. And it is really just a thing where there's a name for this. I want to say it's called the Mandela effect, although
that's the one where you like think something like Berenstain versus Berenstein Bears.
Okay, all right. Maybe it's Bader Mine. Anyway, there's a thing where as soon as you're aware of something, you are much more likely to notice it.
Like red cars.
Yes, exactly. So if you're shopping for a red car, suddenly all you see is red cars. It is Bader, or maybe Bader Meinhof phenomenon. But basically, it's once my brains began the process, 6 years ago, of seeking out 80s movies to do podcast episodes about, it's really just, I see them on Twitter. I'll take screenshots of Twitter threads. I see stuff on Reddit. I'll take a screenshot of a Reddit thread. Sometimes other movie podcasts I listen to will do like listener request months, and people will do like big long threads, and I will just go through and like cherry pick. If other people have done the work of thinking this is good for a movie podcast, like I'll take a look at that. Yeah. Sure. And then, digging through a trailer, you can often tell 80s trailers are very different, but you can still often tell whether something is going to be good. Like there's one that is like, boy, it's flirting with being a podcast episode, but I think it's probably just overly racist, is the one with Pat Morita and Jay Leno where they're like a buddy cop together. Oh. And I was just like, I just know this is going to be really racist against Asian people. I just don't necessarily. Yeah. So that was the questions we had. Thank you for listener Michelle and everybody, Patreon supporter Michelle, rather. Let me give you your proper title. And for everyone else who sent the questions in, we appreciate that. You can always get a hold of us at dissectingthe80s.com, at Dissecting the 80s on Facebook, at Dissect the 80s on Twitter. You can call us at 856-DISSECT. Listener Request Month is coming. We don't have details for you yet, but that will be coming around the corner. And like I said at the top of this little episode, we have some really cool stuff on the Patreon. At this point, you get, I think, 5 or 6 episodes right away when you sign up at the $5 or higher tier, including our She's All That episode, which is quite funny, and our Die Hard episode, which is one of my favorite episodes of the podcast and is up there.
It's a good one.
That was a Christmas episode this year, but there's lots of really great stuff, and we're close to that commentary track, so check it out at patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. We are going to drop in a little teaser for you of that She's All That episode right now. What she does instead is run away straight out of the Department of Silly Walks sketch with John Cleese. No wonder they said she runs like a girl. They're wrong. She runs like an alien monster. She runs like someone who doesn't know what feet are.
Well, she's wearing heels.
I don't care. Her arms are all gangly dangling behind her.
Then she takes 3 steps out the house and collapses on the ground. And Freddie Prinze Jr. comes out and is like, I'm deep. And they leave. I just thought of another movie that I wish we could do on the podcast. Death Becomes Her.
Oh, what year is that?
93, 94. Oh, it's early 90s because it's all CGI work. Like CGI is new and shiny and expensive and cool. Okay. It's one of my favorite movies, and I love it so much, and I know we'd have so much fun talking about it because there's so much there, but it's so close, but so far.
Yeah. Thank you all sincerely so much for listening to the show, for supporting the show. We'd love to have your review. Go review the show if you haven't done it on iTunes or wherever you get it, and send us a screenshot if it's not on iTunes. But thank you seriously, tremendously. It has been a really wild, cool journey for so many people to be listening to the show from all these countries around the world. Like, we were the #1 podcast in the country of Malta, which, no offense to Malta, but I wasn't aware existed until that happened. I'm I'm not good at geography. It's not a slight on Malta. It's a slight on me. But it's really very cool.
System.
Yes, also that. But it's really amazing. We have Patreon supporters in Australia, in Canada, all over the United States. We have listeners all over the world. It's really kind of wild and hard to process sometimes to think about that. So truly, thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for telling your friends about the show and helping to spread the word. That's the best way to get all this stuff out there. But thank you all so much. This has been a treat, and we hope to keep doing this for a very long time.
Yeah. And if you know someone who drives the Wienermobile, if we can just know that our podcast is being listened to in the Wienermobile, that's a real good close enough.
It is. There are movies that feature it in the 80s, but I'm saving them so that when we finally get to record an episode in the Wienermobile, we can do a movie where the Wienermobile makes an appearance.
Perfect.
I know. Somebody kept track.
I found, because the Wienermobile was in our hometown when I was a child, and like
Yes.
they did the thing where like,
we
kids,
both auditioned for the
was that
Bologna.
it? Yeah, I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
Was it a movie or was it just a commercial?
It's a commercial.
Yeah, where I think you just sang the Oscar Mayer
You
Wiener
sang the
song.
song. Yeah.
It's been 100 years, so I have no idea. But I was going through all my stuff at mom and dad's, and I found my like, here's our watermark of the Wienermobile tea-stained cardstock that we printed a certificate on that says like, I auditioned for this thing.
That's awesome. I wish I had my weenie whistle. I don't know where that went.
Right?
Yeah. But yeah, this has been a really cool journey, and we love taking it with all of you. So let's add the Wienermobile to it, and also back to back with Carla Lally Music on BA on YouTube. Let's get all these things to happen. We really love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until next time.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.